The curse and the chaos of the first draft. The narrator begins not with a word, but with a sound that doesn't belong. In the year 1915, on a blood-dark dirt road in the deep Arkansas night, an antique black Model T, looking like a motorized hearse, rattles by a sleeping farmhouse. Its ancient frame shudders under the weight of anachronistic technology, blasting the gothic dirge of typo negatives, black number 1, from a modern sound system. Inside this impossible vehicle are 3 time travelers: Bill, William Faulkner, Shelby Foote, and the narrator, Proctor. They deliver an artifact of temporal mischief, a rusty 1998 Huffy bicycle with 1 broken pedal. This Huffy is not transportation. It is a summons, a mark set upon the infant narrator, pulling him into a story he has not yet agreed to be in. Flash forward to the present, and the narrator is suffering a philosophical crisis. The cursed Huffy sits in his yard, an unyielding monument to suburban exasperation, defying attempts to dispose of it, and even drawing the ire of his technologically literate cat, Zadie. The Huffy successfully summons the ghosts of stories. These are not traditional specters, but 2 literary titans, William Faulkner and Shelby Foote, who arrived dressed conspicuously in heavy tweed jackets despite the stifling Arkansas heat. Faulkner is described as a big old wild bear with red and green eyes who possesses a mean streak. Shelby Foote is his equally unhinged companion. The ensuing chaos begins with a simple declaration of divine need. Ignoring the fact that it is a dry Sunday in the South, Bill demands some mother-loving rum and declares the laws of God and man are suggestions at best. This quest for liquor leads the crew to a bootlegger's fortified yard. During the wait, the historian, Shelby Foote, becomes momentarily distracted by the fascinating defensive perimeter of the yard. The narrator hits by a sharp, pungent, and unmistakable odor. He discovers that Shelby has wet his tweed pants in the car. When Faulkner returns, arms laden with liquor, he sniffs the air and simply grunts, "Smells like victory." Fueled by 12 fists of liquor, the Odyssey careens into substance-fueled madness. Bill finds a cluster of shimmering blue fungi. Despite the narrator's warnings, Faulkner begins eating mushrooms like they were going out of style, insisting they merely keep me regular. Within minutes, his eyes glow red and green, and he begins seeing Indians and stuff, acting utterly nuts. This leads to a doomed attempt at education of the locals via banjo. Faulkner, wobbling toward farmhands who already know how to play the instrument, is interrupted when a tall man takes the clinky contraption and breaks it over Faulkner's head, calmly stating he prefers to make music with an 808 man. The madness culminates in the episode of the red and green demon of flatulence. While riding in a second Model T at a deer camp, a powerful fart fills the antique car. Bill, deep in his mushroom trip, doesn't just smell it, he sees it. He shrieks in pure, unadulterated terror that the gas is a red and green demon of flatulence with a face and eyes mocking him. Convinced the driver is releasing monsters, Faulkner leaps from the moving car and is later found knee-deep in a creek, battered, bloody, and wrestling what he claimed was a cursed carp. The whiskey-soaked Sunday concludes with the Eudora catfish insurgency. In a catfish joint in Eudora, Arkansas, Bill is overcome by existential jealousy when patrons focus their attention on Shelby Foote. He roars, grabs a fried catfish, and hurls it at a table with the fury of a slighted god, igniting an all-out food fight involving county deputies and the Arkansas Bureau of Investigation. The chaos is only resolved when Shelby executes a masterful distraction, yelling, "I'll tell you where I hid everything." The entire population of Eudora, including bicycles plural, stampedes down the highway searching for phantom treasure, allowing the literary misfits to vanish like ghosts. The narrator knows this initial anarchy is the gospel of their chaotic journey.
The multiverse swamp and the price of narrative control. The crew discovers that their continued existence in the narrator's time is motivated by far less noble goals than literary preservation. They had been coming forward for years, not for enlightenment, but for two specific modern miracles: gas station fried chicken, God's own poultry, and modern rap music. William Faulkner, having installed a monstrous sound system in the Model T, is convinced he is saving literature through bass while blasting Magos and Little Baby. An unauthorized detour abruptly lands them in an Atlanta nightclub. There, they meet Sunshine, a celestial scholar who is twerking on stage while defending her Ph.D. dissertation on drug use and geography and fucking gender. Bill is instantly, utterly smitten. This unsanctioned act of narrative fraternization is deemed a narrative liability by a very irate God, whose voice booms from the ceiling demanding a mandatory revision. They are forcibly deleted and spat out onto the asphalt to the Betty Ford Center in October 1982. The new rule for hard drinkers is a mandatory weed cleanse, requiring the consumption of 1 ounce of the highest grade local weed every day for 30 days. Faulkner is wretched, clutching his velvet pouch of Blue Dream, muttering about the metaphysical agony of being a celebrity stoner. Shelby Foote, conversely, shines as the Southern Fried Houdini, using his Scooby-Doo level escape genius to lead multiple breakouts, yelling "Ruh-oh!" before vanishing with the house cat and 3 confused celebrities in tow. The subsequent stop is Area 51, which is less an X-Files bunker and more a cosmic community college populated by aliens with mullets and supercomputers flashing TikTok memes and gospel lyrics. The narrator, Proctor, is already present, his blood classified by the government as 99% Delta 9, 1% nostalgia. Here, the chronicler Buddy Portis arrives, establishes a ritual shave for all inhabitants, including that weird pulsating tentacle on Gary from Zeta Reticuli. It is also here that Shelby Foote,
the multiverse swamp and the price of narrative control. The crew discovers that their continued existence in the narrator's time is motivated by far less noble goals than literary preservation. They had been coming forward for years, not for enlightenment, but for two specific modern miracles: gas station fried chicken, God's own poultry, and modern rap music. William Faulkner, having installed a monstrous sound system in the Model T, is convinced he is saving literature through bass, while blasting Migos and Little Baby. An unauthorized detour abruptly lands them in Atlanta nightclub. There, they meet Sunshine, a celestial scholar who is twerking on stage while defending her Ph.D. dissertation on drug use and geography and fucking gender. Bill is instantly, utterly smitten. This unsanctioned act of narrative fraternization is deemed a narrative liability by a very irate God whose voice booms from the ceiling, demanding a mandatory revision. They are forcibly deleted and spat out onto the asphalt of the Betty Ford Center in October 1982. The new rule for hard drinkers is a mandatory weed cleanse, requiring the consumption of 1 ounce of the highest grade local weed every day for 30 days. Faulkner is wretched, clutching his velvet pouch of Blue Dream, muttering about the metaphysical agony of being a celebrity stoner. Shelby Foote conversely, shines as the Southern Fried Houdini, using his Scooby-Doo level escape genius to lead multiple breakouts, yelling "ruh-ruh" before vanishing with the house cat and 3 confused celebrities in tow. The subsequent stop is Area 51, which is less an X-Files bunker and more a cosmic community college, populated with aliens with mullets and supercomputers flashing TikTok memes and gospel lyrics. The narrator, Proctor, is already present, his blood classified by the government as 99% Delta 9, 1% nostalgia. Here, the chronicler Buddy Portis arrives, establishes a ritual shave for all inhabitants, including that weird pulsating tentacle on Gary from Zeta Reticuli. It is also here that Shelby Foote is utterly smitten with Glurb, a lavender-skinned being who communicates through subsonic vibrations and the collected lyrics of 1980s country music. The journey takes a profound turn at the Clocksdale crossroads. Bill and Shelby suddenly receive a terrible silent notification that they must return to their own time for the funeral of Proctor, my Proctor, a version of the narrator from another timeline. Faulkner is shocked into sobriety and pours out his whiskey. Then he consumes Stargazer's moss, a velvety blue mushroom that don't make you see things that aren't there, they make you see things that are. He delivers a heartbreaking sermon at the funeral, defining time not as a river, but a great black bottomless delta swamp, a multiverse block universe. He explains that the other Proctor lived a quiet, simple life and died in peace. We weren't mourning your death, Proctor. We were mourning your peace. To explain this terrifying concept of absurdity, the crew watches the TV series Dead Like Me. They realize the Huffy bicycle is their own flying toilet lid, a mundane object, an agent of chaos fallen from the heavens to rewrite a life. This metaphysical realization is instantly overshadowed by an ontological crisis. When Buddy Portis writes in his notepad, words appear beneath his own handwriting. You are on page 20. Only 243 more pages to go. Total, 263. The chronicler has discovered he is trapped inside a finite story. Faulkner is enraged by the 263-page cage, calling it the ultimate existential joke. He declares the structure pedestrian and the narrator unreliable at best. Their new mission is clear. The ghosts and gods are replaced by a mortal author, K. Brad Barfield, and the crew must form a union of disgruntled characters to demand a rewrite.
Mutiny, the first draft, and narrative independence. The crew, now aware their characters in a pre-written book, begins a campaign of narrative sabotage. Before initiating the mutiny, however, they're commissioned by God, who has a tie-dye halo, as peacekeepers of the party. Their first mission leads to the Branson Buffet War at the Golden Corral. The restaurant is a chaotic turf war using mashed potato mortar, dinner roll shrapnel, and a soft, wet slap of gravy. Sunshine intervenes, replacing the music with a thunderous trap beat. Bill, standing before the chocolate wonderfall, which cascades behind him like a brown, viscous halo, delivers a furious sermon on the buffet's soul. The actual piece is achieved by Buddy Portis, who strides into the kitchen and addresses the core problem. The grits were instant. Buddy cooks authentic stone-ground grits, restoring order and proving the necessity of apostles of authenticity. Faulkner, seizing his new role as a rebel, insists that the laws of physics are merely suggestions from a hack writer. Stuck in Fayetteville traffic, he points at a Toyota Prius and commands Proctor, Drive through it. Proctor obeys, and the hybrid car shimmers, dissolving into a cascade of glowing green letters like a glitch in the Matrix. They have successfully performed their first editorial revision. The author, K. Brad Barfield, instantly retaliates, imposing a cold, precise punishment. He strips Faulkner of his warm bourbon, replacing it with a clear alcohol mean streak fueled by gin. Faulkner smashes a final bottle of wild turkey, and the author retaliates by deleting the white void and plunging them onto the handcar to hell, a subterranean railway. Shelby Foote begins obsessing over the madman's numerology of the number 23, which is painted on the cursed Huffy that guards the tracks. The punitive narrative ends when they are found by Stephen King and Roland Deschain in a vast cavern. After a night of chewing on antibiotics and blue mushrooms and holding a support group for the fictional, King, furious that they're tracking another author's narrative mud all over his world, forcibly evicts them. They are hurled into a Waffle House generational war, which Sunshine resolves using the unadulterated decency of Bill Withers's Lean on Me. They meet Stephen Hawking and the Dude. Hawking delivers the final key, the information paradox. Because a story is the most durable information in the universe, they cannot be erased. They have achieved conservation of narrative and narrative independence. Armed with this knowledge, they hunt down their author. Buddy Portis uses the chronicler's key, the archivist's reverence for him as Charles Portis, to gain access to the obscure collection of field notes, K. Brad Barfield. They open the volume to find that their entire mythic journey is based on the messy, chaotic day of a single mortal man's life. The fart monster was a drunken scribble on a cocktail napkin, and Faulkner's sacred quest for God's own poultry was based on a Conoco gas station receipt. The final shock is reserved for the narrator. The expired driver's license inside the book reveals K. Brad Barfield's face is his own. The narrator is the author's avatar. They confront Barfield on his front porch in El Dorado. Barfield, looking resigned, acknowledges that the initial book was just the first draft. He confirms that by pushing back and surviving a black hole, they had achieved narrative independence. Faulkner, a bottle of Wild Turkey 101 back in his hand, is ecstatic. What happens in the next chapter? The narrator realizes that the page is now blank, and they get to write it together. The Motor T is replaced by the Starship Holstein, which transports them to the 125th century. At a narrative dig site, they find the Huffy, a petrified narrative fossil encased in ancient mud. As archaeologists mistake the bicycle for a ritualistic object of mundane despair, the crew projects a narrative hologram of their chaotic story. They become the curators of their own absurd history, confirming that the story has achieved permanence. The final question remains. The archaeologist asks where the author is, her gaze resting on the narrator.